Hi there, Rebecca here, your Vibe Mentor, bringing you another video on how to raise your vibration so you can live your best life. So, what is the ego? The age-old question. It's very interesting as you look into psychology and trauma and how there is this interconnection and a new perception as you dig into all this information. And so traditionally the ego is the identification with thought. And what I find very fascinating is thought oftentimes seems to sort of plague us. I like to use the analogy of little gremlins crawling all over your head and speaking these negative things to you, and it's almost like thought demons, right? That they attach to us, and they can cause these downward spirals of self-deprecation and guilt and shame and worry and fear and all sorts of negative thoughts. And so it's really interesting when you start to look at the state of the world right now and how our society drives us to egoic things, how we are taught to look for external validation, and the beauty commercials and the car commercials and the glorified love of money, which really just eats people alive and doesn't really truly provide any satisfaction. And it's very fascinating to kind of take a look at how our desire for self-validation and self-worth is very, very natural. And yet our modes of meeting that need are very unresourceful. The ego essentially is trying to feel good, right? Trying to feel valuable, trying to feel valid, trying to be seen, and we get confused because we feel that the ego is bad or wrong, and so then because the ego wants these things, then maybe what it wants is bad and wrong, right? The ego is it has a function, just like the brain has a function. It can seem that the brain is not our friend oftentimes, but it's there to keep us safe. It can seem that the ego is not our friend sometimes, but it's there to keep us safe, right? The brain is there to help you not fall off the edge of the cliff when you get too close, right? We remember last time we got really close, we slipped, we almost fell, right? So the brain is designed to keep you safe and remember the things that have happened and help put some safe mechanisms in place, to help keep you away from the edge of the cliff, right? The ego is there to help us define ourselves between our body and the mattress as a baby, right? Like we have to have a sense of self to be able to move throughout this world or to understand appropriate behaviors and different social dynamics. And yet when either of these things sort of get out of control, when thoughts run rampant and the brain is tricking us and the ego is insatiably hungry, right? These things tend to kind of turn on us. Even the body often, not often, but has gotten a bad rap in some cases. We have, autoimmune disease, and we have the confusion of thirst and hunger, and really it's just a lack of awareness around how to make these things work for us, right? These things are our tools, right? The body is what creates sort of an antenna effect for us and allows us to move throughout the world and to sense and feel and experience the beauty of life, right? The brain can actually be used to serve us, right? We can learn how to work with the cycle of the thoughts and the chemistry and the emotions and the feelings and the actions and the vibrations and the attraction point, right? And we can learn how to recognize the natural innate needs of being seen, heard, and valued, and know that that doesn't have to be met in an egoic way, that we have inherent value. And so if you've followed me or you've watched any of my recent videos, you've heard that I'm really excited about all of the different intricacies of complex trauma and how this can create a sense of not being worthy, not being valuable. And it seems that we have an epidemic globally of people not feeling valuable, right? This issue of unworthiness is pervasive through all cultures. And I love the fact that we can discover this because it allows us to pull one of the greatest weeds in our life, right? We can pull that weed by the root and leave a gaping hole in our heart and our soul that the world, or that, I'm sorry, that our soul can come in and fill, that our value can come in and fill. And so that giant weed is this issue of of unworthiness, right? Of you could also take the perspective, right? I like to use the analogy of a topic or a block or a limiting belief as sort of an object, right? And as we view an object from one perspective of the room and then we move to another perspective, we can see a whole different picture, right? And so we view this issue of unworthiness as this sphere or as this object, and we start to kind of rotate around it. And how does my perspective change as I look at this in different ways, right? And so this issue of unworthiness is because our soul knows we are worthy and we don't recognize it. Why are we worthy? A few reasons. One, we're inherently valuable because we exist, because we're born, right? Because we have a divine creator who created us with purpose and created us with intention. We are not an accident, right? And the world sends this message to us that we are an accident and that we have to prove our value and worth. Otherwise, we're not worthy. It tells us that some of us are worthy and some of us are not. And so the ego is just going crazy trying to prove I'm worthy. I'm worthy. See me. I'm valuable. Listen, I have something to offer. Hey, pay attention, right? And so then the ego, it's a wounded animal, right? It's an unfed baby, right? We become rampant when we're not fed and our needs are not cared for. So here's the interesting thing. Complex trauma is growing up with a sense of my needs not being met, I'm not valuable, I'm not worthy, and therefore I feel bad about myself, and I have a general sense of unworthiness that filters throughout all of the actions that I take, all of the thoughts that I think, all of the things that I do. Pretty much every aspect of your behavior is going to be influenced by this sense of unworthiness until we define our worth and our value, until we recognize and we bring conscious awareness to the fact that this is an issue, right? So think about quantum physics. When you observe an atom, you can shift a particle into a wave, right? So just purely observing the conscious awareness, which is your true essence, right? You are not your thoughts. You are not your body. You are not anything outside of you. You are not your title. You're not your car. You're not your house. You're not your neighborhood. You're not your culture. You're not any of those things. You are only the observer, right? So when we can be stepping into the observer, we are stepping into our power. And that's when we can start to see this issue, this thread that plagues society of unworthiness and desiring to feel valuable, right? And if you know anything about my work, value and intention-based education is the acronym VIBE, which is why I am the VIBE mentor, is to help you identify your value. Because the ego can be your friend. The thoughts can work for you. The brain and the mind can be your friend. They are very different, right? We can make the body work for us. It's kind of like the biohacks, the neurohacks, right? It's like understanding that you're driving a Ferrari and not a Ford because they're driven differently. You have to shift them differently, right? There's specific ways that we need to understand how to work this beautiful machine or the mechanics of this device that we've been given, and it all starts with your value. It all starts with your worth. It all starts with understanding that you are not an accident. You are made perfectly imperfect for your purpose. And what that means is, yes, you have imperfections relative to what the world tells you you should be, right? It's shoulding all over you. The things that are not normal or different, right? My skin, I can't tan. I have a little bit of a red tone, right? So I felt for the longest time that was something wrong with me. I should feel bad about that, right? Like the models, they all have beautiful bronze skin, right? The world tells you that there's something wrong with you, and so then you learn to reject that part of you, but really it has a purpose. So far, what I can tell is that my skin is there to help me embrace myself unconditionally, to love myself no matter what, to recognize my inherent value and know that some of these things really at the end of the day don't even matter that much, right? So we are perfectly imperfect for our purpose, right? Another example, my sensitivity. Growing up as a sensitive child, I had, a very rough and tumble kind of dad emotionally, and it did not meet my need, right? And that of course created the sense of unworthiness, right? But I learn as I embrace my authenticity and my truth and my abilities and my gifts to support you, that being sensitive allows me to sense what you need and to see what you need to hear, and to be able to nurture you and hold space for you and cheerlead you, and hold your hand as you go through what you need to go through, because it is a process of discovery. It absolutely is alchemy, testing to see a little bit of this, a little bit of that, like making soup. Maybe I need some more salt. Maybe I need a citrus. Maybe I need an acid, right? I taste it. Oh, it's a little too salty. Better add some water. That is the process of identifying your purpose and finding your value. So it's not going to happen overnight. Again, going back to the complex trauma stuff, really, really fascinating, guys. If you are highly sensitive, if you are empathic, you likely had complex trauma. You likely, as a child, did not feel safe or did not feel your needs were met. Therefore, you received the subconscious programming that you were broken, unlovable, unvaluable, da 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 da. Unworthiness as the general concept, right? And so being highly sensitive, being an empath, yes, it was a coping mechanism. It was an adaptive characteristic that you had to bring in to be able to survive, and yet now it's a gift, right? And so everything happens for you, not to you, right? So it's amazing how even the ego, right? The ego is our friend. It's helping us see that you are valuable. You are a critical piece of the whole. The world needs that special gift. We need you to be in your light. We need you to be in your authenticity. We need you to not hide. Another characteristic of that complex trauma is hiding, out of fear of rejection. So, yes, the ego can be the identification with the thoughts, that these thoughts lie to us, that we have a subconscious programming of not enoughness that becomes the repetitive track that plays in our mind. I want to follow my mission and my purpose. I want to be a leader. I want to be a light worker. I want to create healing centers. I want to help people, but I'm too afraid. I'm too afraid of being rejected. I'm too afraid it's going to hurt. I don't want to be seen. I want to hide, right? So the ego is trying to help push you out there, and yet the thoughts are lying to us. And so when we identify with these thoughts, we believe them. We believe the lies of the mind, especially the subconscious mind, right? We have to remember that it is only in conscious awareness that we can maintain control and power over subconscious programming, right? That we have to stay in the now, in the present moment, in the conscious, vigilant state of catching and replacing, reframing, and finding new perspectives for our thoughts. So don't identify with your thoughts. The ego can be your friend. It's trying to help you see that you need to be valued and valuable, because you are, because it's the truth of your creator created you to do something amazing. And so your ego in that sense is trying to help you. It's just a little confused on how we find our value and how we become valuable. And so start to dig into who you are, understand all those authentic needs, right? So again, going back, when we're a child, we're told our needs are not valued, that we are not valuable because we have needs. We learn to reject our needs. We learn to reject ourselves. We abandon ourselves. And it's kind of like we try to bury it, right? Those needs, they weren't able to be met, so there must be something wrong with them, so I shouldn't have them. So I'm going to hide them. Right? I'm going to hide those needs, and I'm going to hide who I truly am, because I'm not worthy and I'm not valuable, and I'm going to get rejected again. So I don't want to let them see the real me. You can't see the real me. If you saw the real me, you wouldn't like me, right? These are the thoughts that it's telling you, right? It's the ego trying to find ways to be valued, trying to find love and respect without being seen, without having needs, which is completely impossible, right? So these things, the thoughts, the little gremlins, the ego, they're not smart enough. They're not conscious enough to know the truth of who you are. Only your conscious awareness and your presence will allow the freedom from these things, will allow you to climb out of that hole and to start to see that you truly are valuable, to start to remember your truth, and to start to find your value from things that are within you, that are your divine gift, right? The reason you are here. So the ego can be your friend. Learn how to use it as a tool. I am certainly here to help. I definitely would love to offer one of my free meditations. There is one down there for finding your life purpose. You can start there, and I have plenty more to offer if you want to come along on the ride with me. So I will see you on the next video. I love you. Namaste, my friends.